So there's a new update to the commercial Vult compact collection, the VCV version of the hardware Freak, together with another module for Vraids, the alternative firmware for Freak. It's based on Vraids for mutable instruments, and it's actually a dual Vraids in one module. All of the features of the hardware module are also in the VCV version, so you can experiment with it or check it out before you buy the hardware Freak. So let's really have a look at a few of those features, and we will start with Freak. Basically, it's a stereo filter with many different filter types, but it has also other interesting modes like low pass gates, distortion, and so on. So here I have Blick, and it's being sequenced by the stochastic sequencer from Shebang, and Blick is going through Freak, and you can see that I have a mono signal going into Freak, but I'm sending both channels left and right to the mixer. We will see also soon enough why. For now, let's listen to this a bit. I will just unmute it here. So we have, of course, the cutoff point, the cutoff control, some resonance. Now we can change also the filter type, so you can see here we have the screen and here we have the filter button, and with it we can change the different modes. And I will go with something like Ferox, for example. And also for each filter we have different modes. So in this case we have low pass. With this button here I can change the mode. We have also high pass. We have in this case also band pass. And we have also notch. I will stay with low pass in this case. And now I can use different modulation sources for each channel, and that's why I send both channels to the mixer. So here I have caudal, also from Vult. Caudal will output smooth random signals. So I will use one for each channel. Let's take this one for channel A, and maybe this one for channel B. And now I can open the attenuators for each of the channels. And if you are with headphones or with good speakers, you will hear how it's moving in the stereo field. And we can still use the main cutoff CV input to add modulation to both channels at once. So here I have an attack decay envelope, and I will use the gates from the sequencer to trigger it and use it to open the cutoff point. Something like this. So now we have movement left and right, but also this envelope is opening the cutoff of both channels together. Now we also have the drive control to add more character to the sound. In this case it will add drive and distort the signal. You can see it here on the screen when I move the knob. You see drive and distortion. And this is also a new addition to the hardware modules, showing on the screen the different parameters when I move them. So for example, when I move the resonance attenuator, you can see that it's resonance modulation, or drive and distortion modulation, or just plain resonance. So you know exactly what is what. Now if I add drive, you will notice that it will raise the levels of this voice. Naturally. But in the menu we can change the output level and this is great also for the hardware version, so it will work better with other modules in the chain, and it's easier to think about gain staging. So if I go to the menu, this is the button that will take us to the menu. In the hardware version, it's you get into the menu by clicking both the filter and mode buttons together. In VCV, you cannot click two buttons at the same time, so you have an extra button for the menu. And if you go to settings, we have here output range, and then we can change it from 100%, maybe I will take this up. Change it from 100% to, let's say, 70 or even 30, and select it. So now we can raise the drive without having the levels too high. Again, it will work better with other modules in the chain. Very nice. Okay, I have here another freak. In this case, it's set to a high pass filter, and it's going also to a delay, the chrono blob. So I'm going to use this freak to high pass this voice and send the higher frequencies into the delay. So I will just do something like this. So I can do something like this. Let's add some drums. I have here a few things prepared. Let's just reset everything so it's nice and in sync. Okay, I have here the gate sequencer from Impromptu. It's sequencing once the oscillator part of Tremor 2 for a kick drum, and once the noise section for a snare. And I have here also noise. I have white noise and blue noise going to slap, also Vult, which is a VCA with a built-in envelope. And from there it's going to another freak, and you can see I have it set to rescomb, which is a comb filter, which is basically a delay. So this is another interesting mode you have on freak. Now freak is not only a stereo filter, it has also a dual mode. So here I have two bleak oscillators going to the left and right channels of freak. They are being sequenced by the random sampler or marbles. This is going also through some delay, but for now the wet is all the way down. So let's have a listen to this. So freak is set to a stereo filter, but we can change it to the dual mode. Again, if I go to the menu, we have stereo mode and dual mode. I will choose the dual mode, and now we can change the filter type separately for each channel. So for the left channel, let's go with Vortex, which is here, but let's say that I went one filter or one mode too much. So I can click and hold the filter button, and it will go back one mode. And now we have Vortex for the left channel. And the new feature also for the hardware version is that by holding the mode button, it will switch to the other channel. So if I hold it, you can see now we can select the mode for the right channel. So here let's go with Vorg, which is this one here. And now the controls are a bit different. So the bigger controls are for the left channels, and you can see this here on the screen. So for example, here we have resonance left, we have cutoff left, we have drive left, and the smaller controls, the attenuverters, are for the right channel. So here we have resonance for the right channel, we have drive for the right channel, and cutoff for the right channel. So we can control them separately. And we are using a different filter for each channel. So again, we can modulate them also each with its own modulation. So here again I have caudal. Let's take this signal here to the A input and this signal to the B input. So this is cutoff mode left. You can see it here again on the screen. And this is cutoff mode B. Let's add some delay now. So again, we have two different filters, one for each channel, and I'm also modulating them separately. And as I mentioned before, there are other types of processors, like we've seen the ResComb, for example. So here I have another Freak. It's set again to dual mode. And in this case I have, if I will zoom in a bit, I have the Briatus for the left channel. The Briatus is distortion, fold and saturation. You see here distortion, fold, saturation. Or it can be also crush, fold and saturation. And for the right channel I have a low pass filter. So we can do this. I have here Basel. I can send Basel to the left channel, which is the Briatus, and then back from the left to the right, which is the low pass filter. So we're sending the signal from the Briatus to the filter, and now we send this to the mixer. So now again, if you look on the screen, we have here a few different controls. The resonance is distortion. This is cutoff. The cutoff point is fold. And the drive in this case, saturation. And then again we have the controls for the filter. So we have resonance, drive and cutoff. And the CV inputs will also work a bit differently. So the resonance and drive will not have attenuverters in this case. But we can modulate the A parameter, which is the fold amount. We can modulate the B parameter, which is the cutoff of the filter. Let's do this really. I have here an LFO. So now we are modulating the cutoff of the filter, which is the right channel. I have here also a pad, so I have a sample that I have to load, of course. A sample that's going to a reverb. And I have here also another Basel as a steady bass. Okay, so before we continue with Freak, let's have a look at Vraids. Again, this is an alternative firmware for the hardware version, but a separate module in VCV. It's built on braids for mutable instruments, and it's actually a dual braids, so we have all of the modes of braids, as you can see here, left and right. And there are two modes, mixed and dual. Maybe I can zoom in a bit. So you can mix the models together or have separate outputs for each model. So here I have an example again. I have here Vraids. I have one channel set to the wavetable mode and another one to the seesaw. And it's in mixed mode, so I'm sending it from the left channel to tangents and to a delay. Again, for now the wet is all the way down, so let's have a listen to this. This is how it will sound like. And we have the timbre and color control for both together. And of course, depending on the model you choose, it will have different controls. Now we can tune them also together with the coarse knob. Or tune them separately. We can also sequence them separately, so here I have the grid sequencer. I will sequence just the left channel. So now one voice is sequenced and the other is just droning. But of course we can sequence both. Let's modulate the timbre and the cutoff point. I have here again caudal, so the timbre will be here, and we have also an attenuator for this. And let's also modulate the cutoff point. Very nice. Now an interesting feature is the amplitude modulation /FM/frequency modulation. So we have level control to the left. And it's also basically an internal VCA. And if we want, we can add also some FM. So I have here an attack decay envelope that I'm going to use to open this VCA for now. But if I take it to the right, it will also FM this voice. But for now, let's stay with the internal VCA and add some delay to this. And again, this is also something you can have for your hardware freak. Changing the firmware is quite easy. I myself, I have two freak modules, one with the original firmware and one that I switch back and forth with the Vraids firmware. Now, as I mentioned before, we can also use Vraids in dual mode. So here I have another Vraids. It's set to dual mode. I will zoom in a bit. So this is how it will look like. And I have on the left, I have the kick model, and on the right I have the snare. And I'm using two Euclidean sequencers to sequence them separately through the trigger inputs. You can see here we have two trigger inputs, one for the left and one for the right. The snare, by the way, is going through some delay. The tap dancer from flag, so it will sound like this. So again, now here they are not mixed, but they have a separate output, one for the kick in this case and one for the snare. And you can of course tune them also separately. Let's add a bass to this. I have here another Vraids. In this case it's set to two seesaws, but as you can see I have here one tuned down, sort of a sub-oscillator. This is going to freak, in this case a stereo low-pass filter with some modulation. Very nice. And here I have another Vraids and another freak. So here I have Vraids going to, in this case, it's a low pass gate, it's called NVIDIA, and I'm using the sequencer, the gate sequencer, to open this low pass gate. Again, this is going through some delay for extra percussion. So let's have a look at another interesting feature Freak has, and this is something that's amazing also on the hardware version. It's a built-in VCA. I have here a long sequence with the ADDR sequencer and expanders. This is sequencing Vraids, which is going to a low-pass filter on Freak. It will sound like this. Now this is going to another Freak, and this Freak is set with an interesting filter. It's called Disjoint. It's a sort of a DJ style filter that has also low pass and high pass with 96 dB per octave, which is quite cool. So here I have it set to high pass 96 dB, and it goes to a delay. So I'm sending again only the high frequencies to a delay, so I can do this. Very nice. And now let's have a look at the internal VCA. We can activate it in the menu. So if I go to the menu under settings, we have VCA, and there are three modes. So we have no VCA, then we have drive for left and right, and then we have resonance for left and drive for right, so separate controls for each channel. Let's go for now with the drive for left and right. Already you can hear that we get no sound because the VCA now is activated. And now the drive CV input will be actually the VCA CV input for both channels. So I have here an attack decay envelope. I'm going to use the triggers from the quantizer, to trigger it. And this will go to the drive CV input. And we have the VCA. Let's also do something like this. I will use the sequence to sequence the decay time. So we have the internal VCA working, and now this VCA is after the filter, so we can crank up the resonance as well. Oh yeah. Okay, I have here another voice. In this case I have two Blick oscillators. They are being sequenced by two note sequencers from JW, and they are going through another Freak. Again, I have here a low pass filter selected, so let's have a listen to this. And now let's set it to have a VCA for each channel. So again, I will go to the settings, VCA, and in this case I will choose the third mode. So now the resonance CV input will be the VCA CV input for one channel. Let's connect already an envelope to it. And the drive CV input will be the VCA CV input for the second channel. So we get two independent voices. And again, this is great also in hardware, so you don't need to use extra VCA modules. You have this built in. Very cool. Let's add some drums. I have here Knock, also from Vult, as our kick drum. And Tremor 2 as a sort of a snare. And this is also going through some delay, and I have leakage. In this case it's a sample and hold modulating the delay time. And I have again noise going to Spank for a hi-hat. So I want to show you something that is really helpful also in hardware, and that's the fact that you can use Freak as a whole voice. So first of all, there are some filter modules that will track 1 volt per octave. Tangents is one of them. Now let's set it to dual mode. Again, I will go to the menu and I will select dual mode. We will stay with tangents in the left channel, but for the right channel, I will go with the Vraids, which is this one here. And now what we will do, we'll do this. I will send tangents from the left output back into the Vraids. And let's send this also to the mixer. And now let's do this. Let's take the drive attenuator for now all the way down. This is the saturation, also the resonance. This is the distortion and also the cutoff. This is the fold of the Vraids. So it's not doing so much for now. We will use also a tuner. So I will send tangents to a tuner. And now I will raise the resonance all the way up so it self-oscillates. And I will tune it to C. Very nice. Now we can get rid of the tuner and we can sequence this with the sequencer. So here I have the sequencer from JW, the grid sequencer. I will send it to the A input, open the attenuator all the way, and now we have a sequence, and again this will track 1 volt per octave also in the hardware version. Let's add some delay. I will send this to a delay first, just for extra movement. And we have the controls of the Vraids, so we can change the timbre of this sine wave. We can saturate it. We can fold it. We can distort it. Or if we change the mode here, we can even crush it. And thanks to the internal VCA, we can also sequence its amplitude. So if I go again to the settings and I select the VCA, I will select the first mode, the drive to left and right. And now here I have an envelope that I can use. And we have a full voice with timbre control, amplitude control. It follows 1 volt per octave. Now Freak has a distortion model, a really nice distortion model called Flame. So let's send this voice first through Flame. You can change the fuel amount, the dry wet, and of course the volume. Flame works really nicely also on pads. So here I have the note sequencer from JW sequencing polyphonically Bleak. And this is going to a low pass filter. I have here the ladder filter Lateralus set, going through lots and lots and lots of reverb, and then from there to another flame. Very nice. I have here another Freak as a voice. In this case I have again tangents. It's going in this case to a Rescom, which is a comb filter like we've seen before. So it's a sort of a weird bass with feedback. So you can see how versatile Freak is in VCV and also for a hardware setup. There are actually a few more settings that you might find useful. So for example, if I go to the settings here, we can change the modulation range for the CV inputs. You can have it 0 to 10 or 0 to 5 according to the modulation sources you have in your system. The output range we saw before. We can change or invert the modulation signals for the A and B inputs. And we can also change the stereo width, so we can have it fully stereo or have it fully mono and almost everything or a few more steps in between. And that was it. If you want to know more about the hardware version of Freak, I will put links in the description to a few videos I made about it, and I will also put, of course, links to the Vult website. Thank you for watching, and cheers.